So we're going to go over exactly what I got up to in May, both what I was reading and kind of what else has been going on so far. Welcome back to the Library Readers and Rapscallions. Ian is back, and I'm going to be doing my May recap for this video, just to kind of go over the books that I read last month and kind of what I thought of everything. Firstly, I'll point out there's not a whole lot on here. I actually only finished 3 books this month, and the reason for that is also the reason why I've kind of been gone for a while and haven't been uploading a whole lot, just sort of in general. I got married. Turns out when you decide to start a YouTube channel on the eve of the single most significant change that you've experienced in your life, that assuring quality and quantity on that channel is quite difficult when you have all that going on. So we're going to be fixing that. Everything's going to be a lot more consistent right now. I sort of just wanted to get a feel for it and get over anxiety of uploading videos and to just kind of go for it. So that's why I did it. That's why I did it when I did it. And I'm gonna be better about uploading going forward. But without further ado, let's talk about what happened in May. So the first book I finished in the month of May was Towers of Midnight. This is book 13 in the Wheel of Time. It's all coming to a head. There's one more book after this. I'm about halfway through at this point, and I do want to finish it. I also kind of don't. I kind of don't want it to end. This is the series that has sort of been the reintroduction of me going back into the world of reading. I started reading Wheel of Time just a little over 2 years ago. I've been very steady with it. This obviously isn't all back to back, and there's been other things sort of mixed in there, but just what an incredible ride so far. Towers of Midnight is in the middle of kind of like the ending trilogy of Wheel of Time. So in the introduction for book 12, Gathering Storm, Sanderson writes that those last 3 books can either be seen as the last 3 books or kind of the 3 parts of the last book, because the original manuscript was so long. And it's just absolutely, everything is coming together, and you're totally gearing up for the last battle. The one thing that I don't know how long the series took to write, like 20 years, 14 books, like was it like 15 million words, however many thousands of pages, all that has been coming to a head, and we are almost at the end of our character's journey, so I can't go into details, but just seeing all of our characters that we've been with since the beginning, going from basically just regular people who kind of had no idea how the broader world works to being able to wave their hands and just detonate an army is amazing. The journey these people have been on, I feel like they're people I go to hang out with whenever I read a book, and I am going to be sad to see them go. And then there's the climax of this book in the the titular tower. Without getting too much into it, you've got a kind of a one of us tells the truth, the other only lies kind of battle of wits sort of thing. You have a little bit of Theseus and the Labyrinth, and then also kind of a Gandalf the White moment, and I'll leave it at that. But just astonishing. And Memory of Light has been great so far. I'm again about halfway through, and when I get finished with all those, once I've dried my eyes and kind of like realized that, oh shoot, it actually is all over, I'm gonna talk a bit more about Wheel of Time in general. But I'm just having a ball with this series. It's awesome. So after that gigantic tome, I decided to go with something a little bit smaller, and I read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This is kind of a quintessential horror book, a little bit classic horror. I think this was in the 50s or something, like 1952 or something like that. I'm not gonna dig around in here too long. For 1959. And it's a pretty classic haunted house story. I'm looking to dip my toes into some more horror. I've read a couple. I've read The Exorcist. I've read a few Stephen King's, Frankenstein, but I'm looking to do some more stuff, especially the classic horror. It seems like classic horror is a lot more of the show don't tell, and that's definitely the case with Haunting of Hill House. One of the vibes I got from the story. Let me back up for a sec. So the general premise is you have I think it was a professor, is doing an investigation on Hill House, this haunted house that's notorious, and he gathers all these people together, and they all have reasons that they're there, and he brings them all together, and they all are going to stay in this house for a while and just kind of see what happens, sort of on the supernatural side. And right away, you get these very unsettling vibes, and I love the slow burn and the subtlety that comes with horror like this. The shadows aren't quite right. The rooms that they walk in, they seem like they're too small or too big, and there's something ought to be a little bit different in there. Flickers of movement out the corner of the eye. You say, okay, I know this is where the kitchen is. This is where the ballroom is. You open the door, it's a completely different room than you thought. It's almost like the house is intentionally messing with them. And at least early on, there's just enough ambiguity in it that you kind of wonder, A, is this all supernatural stuff, or is this all just them, getting stuck in their own heads? Or is this a mix? Are there a couple little tidbits that whatever force behind the house is putting in there, and then they're seeing stuff naturally fall over on the ground, or just a gust of wind blow the door closed, and they're blaming it on the ghost or something like that? And you get a little bit of that idea that some of it might just be in their heads, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and it just escalates. And oh man, I love the steady, slow burn, show don't tell of these kind of classic horror stories. This was just amazing. Last book I read for the month, guys, is The Unifying Force, book 19 of the Star Wars New Jedi Order. This one has been a long time coming. I have spent more time in the Star Wars universe than perhaps any other fictional universe. Watching the movies over and over when I was a kid, reading the books, playing the games, etc., etc. And then, a couple years ago or so, I started on the Expanded Universe books because I never read them. And those started, for a little bit of clarity, those started in, I think, 1992. And then New Jedi Order wrapped up in like 2003. So there's been books that were pretty steadily coming out since then. And then a couple of more series continued after. There's Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, and then after that is when Disney bought Star Wars and they kind of canceled that line of books. But I always wanted to read them. They always kind of been in my mind. I would spend hours and hours as a kid browsing Wikipedia, like the Star Wars wiki database, just kind of reading everything on all the different characters and places and vessels and whatnot. But I would intentionally avoid stuff with the New Jedi Order and the Yuzong Vong because I wanted to read them one day. I didn't want to ruin anything. I did have one or two things spoiled for me, but somehow avoided the big climax. Just like the crazy space battles and the way that the Force is presented in this entire series, and the Yuzon Vong just being this unstoppable terror and just putting the galaxy on its back foot, and then our characters having to realize that the New Republic can't do this, the Empire can't do this, all these other smaller factions, they can't do this. The entire galaxy has to come together as one and fight back this opponent that's beyond anything they've ever seen before, way worse than anything the Empire could have done. And then also the big climax and seeing Luke Skywalker at his finest in combat. It was just amazing. It was like I was a little kid again. This isn't the end of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, as I mentioned, but I am going to be taking a little bit of a break from it. It's had a sense of finality to the series. Like, this was it. Kind of like when you're, 20, 30, 40, and you're looking back on middle school and then sort of realized that one day that happened when all of you and your friends were playing outside and everyone went home and that was the last time you were all together. It had a little bit of a vibe like that, or like you're just kind of saying goodbye and then you just get too busy to meet anyone, and then everyone just sort of goes their separate ways. It had that same sense of finality. It was a very end credits moment at the end of New Jedi Order. I really do want to know what happens next, though. It was just what a ride. 19 books, and and then everything in the expanding universe before that, including the New Jedi Order. I'm probably at like 30 or 40 books. I do want to do a recap one day on the New Jedi Order and specifically in the EU, sort of in general, kind of talking about those books, maybe a tier list or something. I don't know, but I just really enjoyed it. I'll be honest, it's not like, you know, there's a couple of things in here that are just great prose, but it's not super literary. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simplistic writing in Star Wars books in general. But if you adore the universe like I did, you're gonna have a good time. And I definitely recommend at least checking out like the Thrawn trilogy in the EU. And if you like that, just maybe find a list of books to read in the EU that you need to kind of catch up with what's happening and then get through New Jedi Order. It was just amazing, and I had such a wonderful ride, and it's just great to kind of hang out with these characters again. Okay, so that'll do it for the month of May. Like I said, I had a couple things going on, so it was a little bit of a light month reading wise. June is looking better. I'm almost done with Memory of Light, and then after that, already have my reading list up for June in my head, and I'll make a video about that and kind of talk about those books. It's some really exciting stuff. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Those of you that are still with me, I promise I'm gonna do my best to make things a little bit more consistent from now on. And it's great to be back. Catch you next time, guys.